And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the channel. Victory Wednesday. I'm gonna keep saying it for every day of the week because we don't get many of them, but it's a good feeling after the Jaguars defeated the Ravens last week. Shout out to everybody in here. CF Coasters was here at 7:15, patiently waiting for this whole thing. Shout out Puckion, Alejandro. We have Sea Breacher in the building. What's going on, Alex? So we have a special show for you guys today, man. I did bring on a guest. I brought in Jordan DeLugo, a.k.a. Generation Jaguar writer, but now he is the GenJag YouTuber. What's going on, man?
Yes, sir. Fired up. I don't know how you're not ready to run through a brick wall after that intro every time.
Dude, it's I gotta bring some heat, man. But
I love it.
Hey man, I'm loving all the content you're putting out over on the YouTube channel. So how's that whole thing going? Because I know you're kind of transitioning from a writer. Now I got a lot of people joining the party, man, whether it be the 1010XL YouTube channel. Now you're out here producing content. How's everything going on that end?
Yeah, I like it. I enjoy talking and interacting with people more than I do just writing. Like, write an article, put it out there. It's only on your own personal website, like GenJag.com, which did decent traffic, but there's just so many more people that are trying to listen to football content and watch video football content than there are people trying to read right now. That's just the way the world is.
Yeah.
People are all about audio and video content. And so I'm enjoying doing it. I like it a lot and wouldn't be doing it without, you kind of putting forth the example of how to run a channel and do all that stuff. And so yeah, I'm appreciative of what you've done, kind of paved the way for some other Jags YouTubers. And I just love doing it. I love interacting with the fans, love breaking down things down on video and just growing the channel and interacting with everyone. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, absolutely, man. And yeah, I've always been just way more of a fan of like just talking. I've never been much of a writer. This is just my kind of way to get it out of me, and it's fun, man. I know me, like, a lot of times, like when I watch like all your videos, but usually I'm watching your videos when I'm driving in the car or I'm out doing lawn work or whatever, just listening while doing stuff. So it's pretty it's
Likewise.
pretty cool while you're out there. And by the way, guys, I have Jordan's channel actually pinned at the top of the chat, so definitely go over there and check out his channel. Definitely give him a subscription. He makes probably 5 to 6 videos per week. I know you're out here grinding pretty well on it.
Yeah, I try to do one pretty much every day. Just there's I know you're like, for me, this is my main thing that I'm working on. So for me to not do one every day, it's kind of like there's no reason not to. And there's people that are out there that want the content, and I'm not going to just produce content that I'm not proud of. But at the same time, I don't think there's any reason to not be able for me to do like at least a 10-minute video or something every day. So yeah, I've been trying to do it almost every day. Obviously, you need to give yourself a break at times, but yeah, been keeping it going pretty steady.
Yeah, I know generally my breaks come when the Jaguars are not doing well, and I'm just like, okay, I need a break from them. But this is not the week for that, man. The Jaguars came off of a really impressive game against the Ravens, and the Jaguars have had wins here and there, and they all have different feelings, but this one is just a lot different. I know when we beat the Raiders, Trevor had a good game, and I'm like, okay, do it again. He had a good game against the Chiefs. The Chiefs are just better than us at pretty much every position. They're just a better football team than us right now. So the Jaguars lose, but they don't lose in spite of Trevor. And then this last game against the Ravens, I mean, the Jaguars are put in a situation that we've been put many, many times over really just the last couple of decades since I've been watching Jaguar football is, the other team takes a lead early, late in the game. The Jaguars need to come down and score a touchdown with 2-3 minutes left, and then usually we just flail out of it, and it's just embarrassing. But this time, Trevor put together an impressive 10-play, 75-yard drive. Like I watched some of the throws and it's unreal how he made some of these. He's throwing with anticipation, throwing before guys even make their breaks, just dissecting the defense. I mean, Trevor Lawrence right now is so impressive. And really, after this game, everybody is pumped up because it now feels like he's officially arrived and he's almost kind of entering into that elite category finally.
Yeah, he is, in my opinion. And like you said, it's been 3 stellar performances in a row. I saw someone in the chat saying that it's been inconsistent. I mean, you're hard pressed to find a quarterback in the NFL that's playing over the last month playing better football than Trevor Lawrence outside of like a Patrick Mahomes.
I mean,
think
I saw
Trevor
Patrick
Lawrence,
Mahomes last game. He threw a boneheaded end zone, interception in the red zone at like the 5 or 10 yard line. Everybody does it, you know?
right? Yeah, and even in this contest against the Baltimore Ravens, 3 turnover worthy plays in the second half for Trevor Lawrence. And I'm not trying to harp on that. I'm just trying to illustrate like the difference between people absolutely loving you and thinking that your performance was masterful and elite, and the difference between that and having a performance where you turned the ball over twice in the second half, it's razor thin in this league. And I think that just goes to show you that this kind of game, he had the 3 turnover worthy plays, but he was able to overcome them partially because the Ravens didn't capitalize on all of them. But when Trevor Lawrence was on in this game, and when he has been on over the last 3 weeks, you see him from the moment he gets the snap, his dropbacks, no wasted foot movement, no wasted footwork at all. He gets to the back of his drop, ball's coming out, like you said, on time. He's processing quickly. He's throwing with anticipation, as you mentioned, which is just something that can be really difficult to do. And it's something that takes time because you have to have the trust in the play. You have to have trust in yourself. You have to have trust in the receiver that you're throwing the ball to. And he's now close to the top of the league in quickest time to throw.
Yeah.
And that's another sign of just how quickly he is processing things and how he has advanced mentally and physically throughout his first 2 years in the league. So I think he's playing great ball, but at the same time, this is not a player who is never going to make mistakes. And I think that people need to just realize that like Jags fans right now are on cloud 9 with Trevor Lawrence, and they should be. But just as you mentioned, it's not going to be a perfect all the time. Patrick Mahomes just had a boneheaded interception, right? Like you see these plays from the best quarterbacks in the league that are head scratchers. So I don't want people to think that development is a straight line or linear. Like there's going to be still some bumps in the road for Trevor Lawrence at times throughout his career. But this guy is a franchise quarterback, and Jaguars fans should be fired up to have him.
Yeah, and I think more people like need to embrace it. Like a lot of people are saying like, okay, I need to see more. Like, oh, I still have doubts. At this point, it's like, he's going to have his struggles, he's going to have his downs, but I feel like at this point, the downs are going to be mitigated and we're just going to see a lot more ups because what we're seeing right now, that's not going to go away. He's not all of a sudden going to not know how to throw to the guy with anticipation like before he makes his break. He's not all of a sudden going to like have terrible pocket presence and all this stuff. He's not all of a sudden going to not have command of the offense. Like you're seeing him grow a lot more comfortable with this whole entire offense. And it's really awesome. And a great thing is like a lot of times in the past that the Jaguars won games, they had to be perfect. And, this last game, the Jaguars were far from perfect. There was a lot, of stuff that needed correcting. I mean, they didn't do very good in the run game at all. I think we only had 28 rushing yards or something. I think we had 20 rushes for 38 yards once I'm thinking about it on the ground. But they went away from it. They started really relying on Trevor Lawrence a lot more. And, it was great. And I really think one of the big negatives about the game for me was in the third quarter, there were no points scored. And the big reason for that is because it was like Doug Peterson was calling plays like Blake Bortles was the quarterback. Like I remember there was one set of downs where it was like wide receiver screen, wide receiver screen, wide receiver screen. It's like, yo, let Trevor Lawrence deal around the field, man. He can throw it everywhere. He's killing this defense. And I think at this point, and we all know that. Look, Doug Peterson's play calling has been good at times, bad at times, but at the end of the day, like everybody is new and everybody's getting used to each other. And I think at this point, let Trevor Lawrence loose, man. Let him play. Open the entire playbook for him, and I think he'll have a lot of success.
I think they have for the most part, and I think they have most of the season. And I know that some people complain about some of Doug Peterson's play calling. I think some of that stuff is more on the short third downs where you're getting a little bit too cute. But when you're talking about a passing play, 99% of the time, maybe 95, when Trevor Lawrence drops back, there are answers for him to get to within the scheme of what Doug Peterson is drawing up from a passing game standpoint. And so I think Doug has done a great job in the play calling department overall. You're not going to be perfect as a play caller. That's never going to happen. It's sometimes the defense is going to be ready for what you're doing. Sometimes you're not going to be anticipating what the defense is doing. It's a chess match out there. It's not going to be perfect, but I think Doug does an amazing job overall.
Yeah, and I think we have to give also a lot of props to the wide receivers. I mean, Trevor was making some incredible throws last game, but I mean, there were some impressive catches made. I mean, Kirk down the middle, those were those like there was one pass Trevor threw toward the middle. I think it was around the 50-yard line. It looked like the ball carried Christian Kirk an extra 3 yards with the zip behind that. Zay Jones on a couple of those catches, one of them deep. And, I mean, Marvin Jones is being able to get the ankle in bounds. And Zay Jones on the out route. That, I mean, these balls were on a line, and all it takes is one guy to drop one of those balls, and the game might go a different way. And it's just it's a combination of Trevor Lawrence making tough throws and the wide receivers making tough catches. Like we've seen in the past, where like there are wide receivers that need to make tough catches on bad throws or vice versa. And then now, like, you're having them both marry up. And then that's why the Jaguars are able to put up 28 points on the Ravens last game, and, outshoot Lamar Jackson in that offense. And it's it's awesome to see this. It really is.
Yeah, it is. And I think from a talent standpoint, you look at Christian Kirk, he can do what he did every game, or he can do what he did in this game every week. I think JaMycal Hasty, same thing. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. You get JaMycal Hasty in space and he can do things for you. You don't want him running, inside zone. You want him outside. You want him in space. Marvin Jones, same thing. When you throw the ball up to him, he's usually coming down with it in the clutch. The one question I have, can Zay Jones repeat performances like this? Because it's been few and far between this year. You've seen him have good days. You've seen him have decent days where he just is catching everything underneath. He's that shallow target. But he was getting targeted all over the field. 14 targets in this game. Down the left sideline, down the right sideline, up the middle, shallow stuff like he's used to. And he caught everything. It was unbelievable. And so that's one thing I'll be watching the rest of this season. Like, does Zay Jones look more like this guy or more like the guy that you've seen at times where he maybe disappears a little bit?
Yeah, and it felt like he was really a part of the game plan last week because, I mean, they were going to him early and often. I mean, he had several catches in the first quarter, and I was like, all right, I guess this is going to be a Zay Jones day, and then, that's a tricky thing, especially if you're playing fantasy. Who's going to be the big receiver today, Christian Kirk or Zay Jones? I know a lot of people scoffed at, the Zay Jones contract and definitely the Christian Kirk contract, but where are the Jaguars right now without those guys? I mean, they needed those guys so bad. I mean, a lot of people, they were wanting Allen Robinson, but it's like, man, like those guys, those were the good signings at wide receiver. You get guys that are young in their prime, ascending players, like guys that, guys that just are full of potential, and then, there's still some stuff to clean up on the offense, need to get a tight end in here. Calvin Ridley's coming next year and he can always use help at wide receiver. But I mean, overall right now with this offense, I mean, it feels like we're in a pretty good position. And, I don't know, like when it comes to the offense, I guess going forward, What's your biggest area of concern for you throughout the next 6 games?
Yeah, I think overall you can feel pretty good about the offensive line. They've been fairly consistent this year. I think they've done a good enough job for you to win almost every single week. I think they did let Trevor down in Kansas City. I think they let him down in Philly as well. Other than that, I think they've done a pretty damn good job overall. So I'm not worried about that. Obviously, the Travis Etienne situation is something you're keeping your eye on. Like for the Jaguars to be peaking on offense, Travis Etienne needs to be on the field. He needs to be healthy. And so we'll see how that plays out. But from a personnel standpoint, from something that they cannot do, they do not stretch the field well vertically down the seams, down the sideline. They just don't really have that guy that separates deep consistently. You've seen Evan Ingram get some separation deep, but he and Trevor Lawrence's connection on those targets just hasn't quite been there for the most part. So I do think it's the ability to threaten vertically that's been a little bit of a problem, and that makes when you can't attack vertically and you can't pick up chunk yards through the air, it makes Trevor and the receivers have to be that much more perfect on every play because instead of picking up one play for 30 or 40 yards, you're having to go 4, 5, 6 plays to get those 40 yards. And it just makes you be more perfect on each play. It makes you have to execute at a higher level more consistently versus when you've got a guy that you know you can hit deep. That makes it a lot easier for the entire offense.
And I think we need like I f- here's the thing, like Christian Kirk on the Cardinals was able to get deep and get some long balls. I mean, I've even seen Jamal Agnew be able to get deep. I wonder if we have some ability on this roster, if it's just if I don't know if we need to test it more, or I don't know if we need to play design some stuff more. I mean, that's what's fascinating to me is how like we really haven't had any kind of like a deep attack, you know?
Yeah, you've seen it at moments. In moments. In Kansas City, they had 8 passes, I believe, of 20 yards or more through the air, which was by far the most they've had this year. And so I was hopeful that maybe that would be a trend that you'd continue to see. But part of it is too, like Doug Peterson comes from the West Coast system. That system is all about timing, getting the ball out quickly. There's a lot of extensions of the running game through your passing game, like on these short, shallow crosses, on the screens, to the running backs, to the receivers, all that stuff. So there is going to be some naturally in a Doug Peterson offense. You're going to take a lot of short, quick stuff. But yeah, I do think that there's certainly been some plays that either Trevor Lawrence did not take the shot down the field, or the receiver wasn't able to haul it in down the field. And uh, Evan Ingram's a prime example. You've seen a bunch of targets for him down the field, and they just haven't quite worked out for whatever reason with their connection there. Um, but yeah, I think that for the Jaguars to get where they need to be like a legitimate playoff contender and a team that you think can really compete at the highest level throughout the course of an entire season, you need a receiver that can test the defense deep. And fortunately, the Jaguars traded for one. They just can't play him yet.
Yeah, that's what I was about to mention with Calvin Ridley, man. I mean, if he still has the same speed he had, and if he
Yeah.
still has the same route running ability, like that's a guy that's going to be able to stretch the defense deep. And I think really when it comes to Trevor Lawrence's development, I mean, one thing that we've seen is that wheel route to Hasty for the touchdown. He wasn't able to hit that earlier in the year. I mean, you saw him miss an easier version of that on
Mhm.
Travis Etienne week 1, and we've seen him kind of miss similar throws like that, similar throws like that intermediary, shots along the sidelines. We've seen him miss those, but I wonder if now that Trevor Lawrence is getting a feel for it and he's hitting more of the, he hit Marvin Jones on the back shoulder. We're seeing him hit passes he wasn't hitting earlier on. I don't know if it was because of timing or what it was, but I almost wonder if next game against Detroit Lions team who isn't known to have the greatest defense. I wonder if they do try to, test some of that because that definitely feels like, for Trevor Lawrence, that's part of the next step. And I don't know if maybe that's fair to say, because maybe we don't have the guys, getting deep. I know you do a lot more, film study than I do. I don't know if there's guys open deep, or if he's just not seeing it. But really, I think a big next step for him is being able to hit a guy in stride downfield and get a long, touchdown through the air.
Yeah, I do too. And I do think part of it is just his own development personally. And part of it is definitely what he's got to work with, right? I mean, I love Christian Kirk, great slot receiver. He's not a big ball winner down the field. Marvin Jones, great possession receiver. He can go up and get it, but he can't get down the field. He's not a fast receiver at this point in his career. Um, Zay Jones, you saw him doing some of it this week. You see him with the ability to get deep and go up and get the football. But is it consistent? I don't know. Jamal Agnew certainly can separate down the field, but is he going to go up and get it for you? Probably not too often. So yeah, I think they need more big body receivers that can stretch the field vertically, and I think you need that from the tight end position. Again, for whatever reason, Evan Ingram and Trevor Lawrence, when they have tried to connect deep, the connection hasn't been there. I think part of it is Evan Ingram's ability to be where he's supposed to be on the field. I think part of it is they've just had a little bit of a couple miscues here and there. But I think that with Calvin Ridley, you're in a much better situation to where I think looking at that offense, looking at the receiving core with Calvin Ridley included, it looks like a much more potent offense. Just because not only is he adding a threat to the offense, but he's also making it easier for Zay Jones, for Christian Kirk, for the rest of these players.
Yeah. So, by the way, guys, we're here with Jordan DeLugo from GenJag. Of course, his channel is pinned up at the top of the chat. We had one super chat come through and said, "Hey, GenJag is the most listened to podcast of 2022." So you're getting some. I assume that's on Spotify, as everyone's showing their Spotify most
Yeah, I've
played
seen
and
a
most
couple
listened.
of those today.
Yeah, there you go. All right, love to see it. Are you still are you pumping out most? Is that the show where you're with Jeremy, or is that the one where you're
No,
with?
I pretty much just take the YouTube show and put it in audio format
Oh, there you go.
and
Yeah,
just throw it on there too. Because some people don't like if you don't have YouTube Premium. I think if the screen goes black, you like
oh yeah,
lose the feed and different things like that. So it's easier for some people to listen on whatever podcast platform they listen on.
yeah. I'm like I don't know. I'm just a cheap bastard because my YouTube channel's monetized, so I'm like, watch me on YouTube, guys. So
Yeah, fortunately, the GenJag podcast feed is also monetized, but it does not do as well as YouTube.
yeah,
I can tell you that much.
I'm about to say, man, I got a wedding this month. I gotta get all the change I need. You know what I mean? I gotta count all my quarters coming
All right.
up.
This man's got bills to pay. Drop the
Yeah,
super chats, people.
yeah. I got bills to pay up in here, man. My
Yeah.
lights are off. So yeah. Well, let's shift gears to the defense a little bit. The defense has kind of been, man. It started off and we're like, dude, we got a top 5, top 10 defense up in here, shutting out the Colts, turnovers against the Chargers. And then I don't know, it feels like with how new the Jaguars defense was, teams figured it out. Teams figured out Mike Caldwell. And then lately it's just, man, we're not getting pressure on a quarterback, which is just weird because like I feel like Josh Allen just he started off like it's like he's not doing the same pass rushing moves. It's just weird. Trayvon Walker, great at committing a holding call per game, but he's just not getting enough, pressure on there on the quarterback. And then, Devin Lloyd is lost. And, luckily the Jaguars last game, and in their wins in general, they're able to force some turnovers. But in your eyes, what's going on with the defense, man?
Well, I think the pressure is inconsistent. I think it was actually really good against the Ravens. And people are like, well, we didn't sack Lamar Jackson. Well, Lamar Jackson is damn difficult to get on the ground, especially when the interior of your defensive line kind of craters and there's big ass holes to run through. But Josh Allen, 6 pressures last week. 3 of those pressures directly led to Lamar Jackson incompletions on third down. So people are always talking about, well, pressures don't matter. Pressures don't matter. Not all pressures are created equally, A. B, when a pressure forces an incompletion, that's just as good as a sack. It is absolutely just as good as a sack. And so does Josh Allen need to get to the quarterback and get him on the ground more? Yes. Trayvon Walker, yes, got to. And Trayvon Walker was absent for most of that game, it looked like, in the pass rush department until he did force a holding call on the left tackle, backup left tackle filling in for Ronnie Stanley. But that was a clutch play. That was a big time in the game for him to pick that up. That was in the fourth quarter. That was late. So I do want to see Trayvon continue to develop. I think when you talk about Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker not showing some of the moves that you've seen, I don't know if perhaps some of that has to do with the way they're being coached on a weekly basis. Like this week, we are playing contain. We are not letting Patrick Mahomes get outside the pocket. This week, we are playing contain. We are not letting Lamar Jackson get outside the pocket. I don't know how they're being coached within the defensive coaching staff from Mike Caldwell on down, but I do think that the pass rush has been too inconsistent for how much of an investment you've made in it. When you talk about Josh Allen, first round pick, Trayvon Walker, first overall pick, Arden Key, DeJuan Smoot, signings, Foley Fatukasi, signing, Devon Hamilton, third round pick. Like there's just too many guys up there. Roy Robertson Harris, big signing. There's too much investment for them to not be doing a little bit more consistently. However, I do think they did a good job against the Ravens. I think they've done a better job overall on the season than most people want to realize. But I think they should do a better job than they are. My biggest concern is still left cornerback. When you talk about the defense, Tyson Campbell's playing really well. Darius Williams, I think, is playing fairly well. Whether he is lined up outside at left cornerback in base or in nickel, which they're in more often, he's lined up in the slot. And then when they're in nickel and you have whoever it is playing left cornerback, Buster Brown, Trey Herndon, whoever it is out there, it's not pretty. And I think the Ravens weren't able to take advantage of that, A, because the Jaguars were running a lot of 3 safety looks, not even putting a third cornerback on the field all that much. And B, because the Ravens injured their receiving core is injured. They don't have the guys to get it done on the outside with that receiving core. So my biggest concern is still left cornerback. I do think there's an area of the field when you talk about in between the linebackers and the safeties that it hasn't really been pretty in coverage. I think Andre Sisco's doing a really good job. I think Foye is doing a pretty good job in coverage. Rayshon Jenkins, I know people love him this year, and he has been excellent as a run defender and in pursuit, and he's made some splash plays in coverage, but he's too inconsistent in coverage. Whether it's Chad Muma or Devin Lloyd, they've been too inconsistent in coverage. And I think Chad Muma brings more consistency right now than Devin Lloyd does. I think he should continue to get more reps and start at this point. And I'm not giving up on Devin Lloyd. I'm just saying right now he is swimming against the current. It's like a damn riptide for him right now. Chad Muma's playing a little bit more consistently. Maybe just having Chad and Foye out there more often than not will help in that coverage department, because Devin Lloyd just had too many busts, unfortunately, where it has nothing to do with his physical ability. It's just all happening a little bit too fast. And I think that's slowing Foye down as well when Devin's on the field. So it's just one of those things where I think coverage is the issue right now. That's the biggest issue.
And did Devin start off like with coverage issues like that, or has it just been popping up more and more lately?
I think there was some of it, but it wasn't really costing the team early on. And he was, making highlight play after highlight play after highlight play. And so, when your mistakes aren't costing the team and you're doing some amazing things on the field, they're going to keep rolling with you. People are going to love it. You're not going to worry about the mistakes. But when the big splash plays start to diminish and the mistakes start to happen more and more, then it's like, okay, what are we doing here? And I think part of what it is he missed all of training camp. thrust into the starting lineup, and he just hasn't had a real offseason. And no rookie has a real offseason. When you talk about going from your college season to the All-Star circuit to the combine to pro days to preparing for the NFL draft, then you're on the NFL team and you don't have any time off really. You get in there for rookie mini camp, you have OTAs, you have training camp, then the preseason, and then you're thrust in. And I think it is difficult for rookies um, to sustain performances in that type of situation. And I think you've seen some of that from Trayvon Walker too. I don't think he looked fully engaged consistently against the Ravens.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just, and I definitely agree with you on cornerback. I mean, I know growing up, there was this cliche that coaches would tell you, like, you're only as good as your weakest link. You know,
Yeah.
I don't believe that for the most part, but when it comes to like cornerbacks, yeah, it feels like that because I mean, when you're playing a zone, they know who to pick on, man. And they know, you know, by this point in the NFL season, the back half of the season, they know where the weak points are and they know who they can pick on. And yeah, right now, I mean, Tyson Campbell, you know, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but I feel like he's not getting his due for one, because Jaguars aren't necessarily winning, two, because he's a Jaguar, and three, because, you know, a lot of times when defensive backs get their due, it's because the secondary and everything as a whole and the whole defense is playing so good to where, you know, certain guys get spotlighted. And, you know, and Tyson Campbell, that was a nice pick, you know, number one in this, you know, second round in last year's draft. But yeah, we gotta, you know, get somebody on the other side of him.
Yeah, and it's easy to just avoid Tyson Campbell if you're
Yeah,
an opposing offense.
yeah,
You're like, we don't need to target this guy.
yeah. I
We
mean,
don't need to target anyone that's covering him.
and it's funny because after a lot of these games, they could tell you that Tyson Campbell never played, and you'd probably believe him because you
Yeah.
just don't, you know, you don't see him a lot because they're not, you know, targeting him. And you know, that's one of those positions where it's like, you know, cornerback and offensive line. If you're, you know, if you're invisible, you probably had a pretty good day.
I'll tell you one thing though. Um, he did pick up that fumble,
Yeah, he
the
got that
Andrew
from
Wingard
Wingard.
forced
Yeah,
fumble,
yeah,
and I believe he forced a fumble a couple weeks ago
yeah,
that was not recovered by the Jaguars. So even when he's not getting targeted a ton, he's trying to find a way to make an impact on the game, and I really appreciate that because you
yeah.
could see a lot of guys out there. Oh, I'm not getting targeted. I'm just doing my own thing. I'm fine. But no, Tyson Campbell's trying to get dirty, trying to make something happen for this team, even when his guy's not getting targeted, and you love to see that.
Yeah, he's definitely built for the position, man. He's nice size. He's got really long arms. He's really physical too. I mean, he's you know, and you know, the big knock on him is that he doesn't locate the ball very well coming out of college, but now he's like, you know, he's done that repeatedly and he seems to be around the ball a lot. So, you know, it's always good to see a player grow. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just I was just going to say on a couple of the plays he has led up this year, sometimes just better offense. A perfect throw is almost always going to beat perfect coverage.
Yeah.
And that just happens sometimes. And it happened to him a couple times this year when you talk about Jahan
A la
Dotson.
Devontae Adams.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I remember
Um,
one of those. I think the one along the left sideline. It was good coverage, but it's freaking Devontae Adams with a perfect throw. I mean, you
yeah.
know,
Or like the Mike Williams touchdown in week 3. But
yeah,
overall, yeah, he's become a stud. He's
yeah,
any team would be happy to have him starting.
yeah, yeah. Wide receivers are always open if you throw it to them, right? So, um,
Yeah.
so yeah. Now the Jaguars. So it's an interesting stretch of games now. You know, it's interesting what a win does to you because it brings back life into you. You know, last week we're not talking playoffs, so now we're 4-7, and we're like playoffs, maybe playoffs, um, and a lot of things have to happen. First of all, wins, wins, wins. I mean, I think down the stretch, the Jaguars at minimum need to go 5-1, and there's certain games that are requirements. First of all, you got to sweep the Titans. You got to beat the
Mhm.
Texans. You got to beat the teams that you're better than. The only real acceptable game I think to lose if you're going to go 6-1 is probably the Cowboys, because first of all, if you're playing an NFC team, that's the least valuable win. And also, I don't think the Jaguars match up very well against against the Cowboys, just with their their passing attack, and they put up points, and they actually have a pretty good defense too. But Lions, I mean, you feel like you're evenly matched with them. But if you're evenly matched, we should be able to, find a way to come out victorious. We have the better quarterback, maybe that'll be the advantage. And,
I think the
overall,
better coach as well.
Yeah, better coach as well. And, you mentioned this on your podcast with Clay Harbor that, look, if the Titans lose the Eagles next week, which a lot of people are saying, oh, the Titans are going to lose the Eagles. Not so fast. Every time we see an opponent and say, oh, the Titans, easy loss for the Titans. It's never like that. Vrabel's a great coach. He gets those guys ready. The Titans will be a team that, could beat the Eagles next week, then lose to the Texans next week. They're just that kind of team. But if that does happen where the Jaguars find a way to be victorious in Detroit and the Titans lose to Philadelphia, the Jaguars play the Titans twice. Jaguars would be in control of their own destiny, with 5 games left to play. And then, we're really talking. And then you're looking at potentially even wild card, and Jaguars would hold the tiebreaker over the Ravens, the Chargers. There's certain teams that, the Jaguars might have the head-to-head against. And then we can talk. But I don't know. What say you about all that?
I think it's fine to talk about it. I don't think it's really reasonable to expect it to happen right now. It's difficult for the best teams in the NFL to pull off 5 or 6 in a row. Much less, the Jaguars, who are a young, talented team with a great head coach and a great young quarterback and some good ancillary pieces. But they're still a team that's finding themselves. Maybe they have found themselves now. Maybe this was the straw that broke the camel's back. Maybe this was it. This big win against the Ravens. I know people have made a lot of parallels between this team and the 96 team. It's going to be tough, though, because you're talking about sweeping the Titans and beating the Texans. The last time the Jaguars beat the Texans was 2017. Okay? I know the Texans
AFC
suck.
juggernauts.
I'm aware, but the Jaguars can't beat them. And the Titans, when's the last time the Jaguars swept the Titans? Never. I don't think they've ever swept the Titans.
Yeah, I'm not in my
life. They have. I'd love somebody to tell me, but it hasn't been in the last 15 years.
I mean, we've won games like here and there, and they usually just been like kind of crap. Like I think we beat the Titans when the Titans had the number 1 pick. That was the last time we won in Nashville, which they wound up trading back. That was in 2016. They traded back with the LA Rams.
And I know Minshew beat them in Ramsey's last game.
Yeah. But other than that, I can't remember the last time before that 2016 game or 2015 game that the Jaguars actually beat the Titans. I don't know. It's a new era. Doug Peterson's in the building. He's going to get it done.
I do agree with that sentiment, certainly. Doug Peterson has changed this, and the Jaguars can beat the Titans. The Titans are not unbeatable by any stretch. We've seen that. But they are well coached. They are hard-nosed. They're tough. They're physical. They execute at a high level on defense. And they've been kryptonite for the Jaguars, and so have the Texans. So I think it's fitting that the Jaguars are going to have to take down those teams in order to punch their ticket. And it's also kind of fitting that, they got to play Detroit. This is another one of those games where there's so many connections between Detroit and Jacksonville with the current groups that they have, with Mark Brunell as the quarterback coach, Todd Wash defensive line coach. You've got Marvin Jones returning to Detroit, Jamal Agnew returning to Detroit. You've got the 1st overall pick versus the 2nd overall pick, Trayvon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson. There's just so many different storylines.
Don't disrespect DJ Chark like that.
DJ Chark. I've been talking. I love DJ Chark, and he made a couple plays last week. I think that the Jaguars are gonna have a tough time covering DJ and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And if Jamison Williams plays, who knows? Goodness gracious. I don't expect him to play this week, but we'll see how it all goes.
No, they're very similar to the Jaguars right now, man. They're a team that started off losing a lot. Now it seems like they're getting hot. They lost a close game against the Buffalo Bills last week, so they actually have a little bit of a mini bye they're coming off of. But yeah, this is a game where, look, like if Trevor Lawrence keeps playing the way he's been playing, if you're talking about getting on a winning streak, I mean, it's going to come because Trevor Lawrence is playing at an elite level. And then we just have to, make more plays than the other team. We got to hopefully win a turnover battle. We can't, be giving them the ball in point blank range. I know the Jaguars kind of traded, I think, field goals off of really short turnovers the way they did last game. But yeah, we had to keep taking advantage. Guys had to keep making plays, and this should be it should be a really fun game. It should be a track meet with the way Detroit Lions are putting up points on the ball. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
I think
it really
it's possible that the Jaguars defense does flip a little bit of a switch. And again, it's not getting fixed at left cornerback this year. I don't think it's getting fixed in the middle of the field with some of the coverage issues you see there, but they do force a lot of turnovers and they do have a lot of talent up front. And I think that it's possible for them to play better football than you have seen. So, I know people aren't really pissed about how they played against the Ravens because the Jags won, but there were a couple of Ravens missed opportunities away from giving up 40 points.
They missed at least 3 when it comes to bad throws or just drops. They missed some opportunities. And look, if you're winning, if your team wins, there's plenty of opportunities where they got lucky. I mean, it happens every game, and quarterbacks miss passes every games, and there's drops. But yeah, the Ravens left a lot out there, but the Ravens are a good team.
Yeah.
Jaguars found a way to kind of combat that. But I had a question: what went on at cornerback last game? Wasn't Trey Herndon inactive? And did Shaquille Griffin? He played a little bit, right? Did he get?
No.
He didn't. Okay, I thought I saw him.
No,
out there.
Shaq's still on IR. I can tell you there was. This is the weirdest. I actually like that Mike Caldwell was willing to kind of go off the beaten path to try to defend this team and do something different. That's why you saw Dewey Wingard on the field so much.
Yeah, we went big nickel, right? What is it, big dime? When a 3 safety looks, what is that called? Big nickel?
Yeah, I mean, you could call it dime, whatever you want to call it. But I liked that he was willing to do that, and I hope he's willing to continue to try to do some funky stuff to make this defense work. But looking at who was in coverage last week, there was a guy I had never heard of, Tavon Campbell. He had 6 reps at left cornerback.
The only reason I heard about him was because when the Jaguars were about to play a couple of weeks ago, I think it was a Chiefs. I was watching CBS getting my room set up for my live stream, and they came out with the inactive report, and it said cornerback C. Campbell, or it said T. Campbell, inactive. And I'm like, wait, Tyson Campbell's inactive? And I looked, and I was like, oh, it's Trayvon Campbell, whoever the heck that is.
So they had him out there, and they had Buster Brown out there a little bit. But for the most part, it was just 2 corners and 3 safeties or 3 linebackers.
Yeah. Bring back Will Blackman. No, I'm joking. I mean, yeah, it's there's no fixing that this year. There's not just cornerbacks waiting out there trying to get picked up. But yeah, it's and it looks like where the Jaguars will be drafting, if they're drafting between 10 to 20, I mean, it feels like cornerbacks always seem to work out, in that range. If you're drafting cornerback, unless they're
as long as you're not drafting at 9, right?
Yeah, I mean, as long as they're not a mental case, there's some other stuff going on with Henderson. I mean, we all knew he had the ability. It's just, and I don't know if he's doing well out there in Carolina right now, but it's a weird place to flourish out there for sure. But hey, if they want to make more trades with us, we're definitely open for if they want to sell us any of their pieces.
Open for business. That's right.
Yeah, open for bit. Although they didn't want to give up on Brian Burns, but
no, we're open for business.
Yeah, we're open for business.
I don't know if they are.
We got the trade of the trade deadline. I thought with bringing in Calvin Ridley on such an incentive, Lavin D. I mean, what best case scenario? You're only giving up a second rounder because you signed him to a big extension. I mean. And I
don't 1 year, 5th another year.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have been following him on Twitter, but he's been live tweeting a little bit during the Jags games and retweeting Jag stuff. And he's he's an honorary member of Jaguars Twitter right now as he's at home, making sure he's off of FanDuel, just
Yeah,
enjoying.
I'm not sure if you saw it, but he also had a workout video today of him running routes, and I don't know who was covering him, but he was putting that dude in Blender. His footwork still looked fantastic, and it's on Instagram, not Twitter.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I think we're
but
about to.
yeah, he looked like he was moving just fine.
Yeah, I'm about to say. Okay, I'm about to find it. And I'm about to play it for everybody, man, because I
Oh
have
yeah,
not seen it personally.
it's nice. And again, I don't know who he's covering, but if you ignore who he's covering and just look at Calvin Ridley's footwork and his explosiveness, he looks like he's good to go.
Yeah, I don't know if he deleted it or not. I don't see it on. Oh wait, here it is. Is this it? August 16th. No, that's not it. Or is it on his story?
You could go check Mia
Okay.
O'Brien's Twitter or I
Okay.
think I retweeted it.
I think
She shared the video from his
it's like
Instagram.
with the red end zones.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me I'm just gonna go to your Twitter.
Jags Nation says that's an old video.
Okay. Yeah, I'm about to say I was on I don't know, whatever people can do for tweet engagements, but
Yeah.
okay. But I imagine he runs like that just now. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, and the Jaguars did more due diligence than just asking, like, is this guy okay? Like a
Yeah.
lot went into this move.
Yeah. Yeah, he's yeah, exactly. And then I mean, it sounds like I don't know. I'm excited to have him. He sounds hungry. He sounds like he's pissed that he's at home. I mean, it feels like he likes football. I mean, I don't know what happened when it comes to him taking the mental break. I don't know if it was I don't like to really like go much into what is involved when it comes to taking time off because I
Yeah, because
think
we don't know.
none of us know. I just think it's a little bit ignorant being like, oh, he doesn't love football. He took time out. How do you know? Like, how do you
Right.
know he doesn't love football? Like, how and different things like, oh, he's a mental case. He took time off and he has a gambling addiction. Like, what? Like,
Well, and look at what his quarterback's doing.
yeah,
Matt Ryan, I think he's making some other receivers want to retire or hang it up right now.
yeah. I think he's making freaking Kyle Pitts glad he's on IR. I mean, not Kyle Pitts, but I think Marcus Mariota, the current quarterback over
Yeah,
there, man,
that
it's
too.
been. I don't know what the Falcons' plan was drafting Kyle Pitts, then Drake London if they don't plan to throw the ball at all. It's just a weird thing. They need to.
Crazy.
I don't know. I mean, if you're a team without a quarterback, it just feels like you're a sailboat with no destination. I mean,
Should have
it's
took Fields.
yeah, a lot of teams, man. Carolina. I mean,
Should have
plenty of
took
teams.
Fields.
Denver. I'm
Yep.
sure Denver would have liked to be backed out of their situation right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean that's a tough. I mean, I'm right now I'm just glad that feel blessed that we're in the Jaguar situation. So I guess going
What a
forward, if we want
beautiful
to
thing
preview,
to say.
oh yeah. So I guess going into this Sunday's game, I mean, how do you feel about the Jaguars' chances? Do you think you're going to predict the Jags victory this Sunday, or what's your thoughts?
Well, it's tough for me because 2 out of the last 3 games. Well, I've picked against the Jaguars the last 3 games and they're 2-1. So do I just keep picking against them?
Hey man, one thing I've learned
And
in my life is you can never go wrong picking against the Jags.
so there's that to it, but like on paper, I think the Jaguars have a better head coach. And that's not just me, being excited about Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson is better at clock management. He's better at game management. I mean, he is the offensive coach. He's the offensive play caller. I think all those, and look, Dan Campbell, one thing that he and Doug Peterson have in common, they get their guys motivated. Those guys want to go out and play for those coaches. There's no question about it. There's full buy-in from both football teams. And that is exciting for 2-4-7 teams that are young, going head to head late in the season. Both of them are trying to, get themselves into playoff contention. I think that's fun. But I just think from an X's and O's standpoint, from a football standpoint, Doug Peterson is a better coach than Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence is a better quarterback than Jared Goff. I think the Jaguars' defense is better than the Lions' defense. But it's still tough because it is in Detroit. You're traveling. Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars have been a lot better at home since he's come to Jacksonville than they have been on the road. And it's going to be a heightened environment. It's going to be a tough contest. And the Lions, just like the Jaguars, they're competing with every single team they play. And so it's probably going to come down to which teams do well with clock management, with not making the mistakes at the end of the game. The Jags have done well in that regard lately. Overall on the season, it's not been great, but Detroit had won 3 straight prior to losing to the Bills on Thursday, and that was a hell of a game. They give the Bills everything that they had that they could handle, and the Bills just Josh Allen made some plays down the stretch. Jared Goff didn't. So it might be one of those situations where it's like, does Trevor make those plays that Jared Goff cannot? So we'll see how it plays out. But I think on paper, neutral site, I think the Jaguars are the better football team. But I think it's really close. And it is in Detroit. It's not at a neutral site. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think for me, this game's going to be a big turnover margin game. I mean, I feel like whatever team wins the turnover, battle will ultimately win. I mean, especially when it comes to, just inopportune turnovers and bad situations. I mean, they're never good turnovers, but don't turn. The Jags have been doing better in the red zone, but don't turn over in the red zone. Don't, that fumble really stunk that happened to Trevor Lawrence when it comes to them coming around the backside and him losing the ball and them getting the ball basically like point blank range. But yeah, I mean, with this one, I mean, it feels like it's going to be one of those on paper, at least it looks like it's going to be a track meet with the way the Detroit Lions are scoring and, the way each defense has just been kind of letting up points and just the way the Jags offense is trending. But it feels good to be potentially in a game like that. I mean, I can't really remember the last time I thought the Jags would be in a shootout. I know last year we struggled to put up over 20 points. I think we put up over 20 points like twice last year. But it was just it was an overall bad year. And it's funny the way just Urban Meyer his name keeps popping up. I mean, in this time, It wasn't the media. It was literally Dewey Wingard in a post-game interview. He said, it's like Trevor Lawrence didn't even have a rookie year with Urban Meyer. And, I keep talking about him. A lot of people say I should move on, but I mean, it's still relevant to where the Jaguars are. I mean, when it comes to the development, I mean, if you brought in Peterson last year, I know, just hypothetically, I don't know if he even wanted to coach last year, but, instead of Trevor Lawrence learning this offense on the fly this year, he would have had a full offseason. All of a sudden, boom, week 1, he's owning this offense. And right now you're seeing him own the offense now, but I think it took a little bit. But it definitely feels like Urban Meyer set us back when it comes to, where we are schematically.
Yeah, if Doug was hired at the beginning of 2021, I think the Jags would be in first place in the AFC South.
I read a report on the Ringer that Doug Peterson was actually offered the OC job with Urban Meyer, and he turned it down.
Thank God he turned it down.
Imagine that. Imagine if you're Super Bowl winning coach and you're reporting to Urban Meyer.
Well, then, I don't know. There might have been a mutiny at some point.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think Doug could sit there and take it.
What was funny is no one talks about this, when it comes to all the Urban Meyer, baffles. But you remember the special teams coordinator literally quit in like July?
Yeah, he stepped away for personal problems. And
personal reasons, family. No, dude,
they brought in
because you saw what was, and especially you're the offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, special teams coordinator. I mean, it's not an assistant somewhere. I mean, it was.
He had to, he hired the guy from Iowa who he then had to let go the very next day. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, it was. I always say this, man. I hope one day we can win a Super Bowl and we can just look back and just laugh about. I mean, I know we're laughing now, but I think right now we're suffering a little bit from setbacks. I mean, you think maybe we'd have another win or two if things went differently last season, but hey, as long as
sure. I mean, I don't think either of those interceptions against the Texans or Broncos happens.
Yeah,
I really don't.
And I think the good thing about it is we came out of it and Trevor Lawrence like wasn't broken. I think that kind of thing can break quarterbacks.
That is a credit to him.
Yeah.
No one else. What he had to do, and the entire team had to deal with it, but it's different when you're a first overall pick quarterback. The rest of the team didn't have the pressure on them that he had. And to have absolutely nothing to work with.
Yeah.
Uh, goodness gracious.
And just coming out to the media and just like answering all the questions and
Owning
yeah,
it.
it was a bad spot. It was a really bad spot, but I mean, he overcame it, and right now it feels like he's thriving. And we have 6 games left. It feels like a fast. I mean, I can't believe there's only 6 games left. I mean,
Yeah.
season kind of flies, but we've got some good football going on. The Jaguars. I mean, we've been in this situation a lot of times where, look, I mean, we're 4-7 right now. It's not good on paper, but I think we're all excited to see the Jaguars play. We're excited to, see the quarterback continue to develop. It's a lot more fun going into an off season when you got the guy at quarterback than if you're trying to find a guy at quarterback. I mean, the Colts this offseason, if you're a Colts fan, I don't think it's a lot of fun because like you got to bring in a head coach. You're going to figure out what to do at GM. And then once you get a head coach, you got to figure out what the heck you're doing at quarterback. I mean, and the answer is no longer tape it up with a free agent quarterback. Now they got to go draft a guy. And if you're sitting there at like number 12 or 13 in the draft, unless you trade up, there's going to be 3 or 4 quarterbacks gone. Then you might have to settle for like, I don't know if that's the range Anthony Richardson goes in or what that's going to be. But yeah,
Could be
they're in a
Anthony
tough spot.
Richardson. Could be Will Levis. If I was them and those were my options, I'd probably punt. I'd probably try to have a tanky season
Yeah.
and try to, try to build a culture while at the same time sucking enough to get a great draft pick.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
And
they had to clean up the roster too. I mean, their offensive line is overpaid and underperforming. They just their roster is just like kind of like aging like milk right now. It's just they need to clean things up. I think Ballard's a decent GM, but he hits at the positions like he'll hit at guard, he'll hit at like inside linebacker, like safety, corner, but he's not hitting at the big the quarterbacks or the big impact, the pass rushing defensive ends. So he has to, yeah, they have to figure that out. But it's one thing we know is that the Jags had the best quarterback in the AFC South, and really 2023 we're going to be ramping up and we're going to be getting after it.
yeah, and hopefully there's going to be a little bit more help on the defensive side of the ball next year. You get Calvin Ridley in here. I think that they're probably going to end up switching up what they have at the tight end position, given that Ingram, Arnold, and Manhurts are all on expiring contracts. I think they're going to try to upgrade that spot. I really do. And we'll see how they're able to do that, whether it's through free agency or the draft.
Yeah. Well, all right, guys, that'll be the show today. I know a lot of you guys have been clamoring for me to bring on Jordan. Jordan's an old friend of mine, man. He was here. We know each other for a long time just through, my YouTube channel and his writing and stuff. And, we've kind of gone through all this Jaguar coverage stuff together. So it's always a blast with Jordan. Like I said, guys, I pinned his channel up in the top of the chat. And also if you're watching this on replay, his all his links will be over in the description box down below. So definitely go check him out, subscribe to his channel, all kinds of Jags content he's putting out. He's doing an awesome job over there. So hey, Jordan, really appreciate you coming on, man.
Had a great time as always. Really appreciate you having me. And yeah, we've been chilling for like 5 years now, right? You started back in 17 or
Yeah, I mean, it started back in 17, man, and
yeah.
I'll say like, the passion for the Jaguars definitely drives you because if you're not passionate about the team, you can't go as long as we are. That's for sure.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I'm obviously we're both very passionate about the Jags, passionate about football, and I've been enjoying your content this year. It's been a lot of fun. Some of the weeks, a lot more fun than it has been over the last couple years to watch some of the videos and enjoy some of the live streams.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell that the Jaguars are 2-10. My video has become 2-10. I'm filming in my backyard on my phone, just not really putting in the effort because I don't feel like my team's is. But yeah, man, it's a lot of fun. Drop likes on your way out, guys. Like I said, man, this is Jordan DeLugo from GenJag. Appreciate everyone for being here. Go Jags.
Peace.